So today I'm going to be talking about two films, Her, directed by Spike Jonze, and Ex Machina, directed by Alex Garland, and how they relate to sort of the concepts of AI from a philosophical lens. So to kind of begin, I do want to talk a bit about Alan Turing. He was born in England in 1912 and he passed away in 1954. He was a brilliant mathematician, computer scientist, and sort of considered the father of artificial intelligence. So Alan sort of developed this test, which he called the Turing test, or the imitation game. And sort of how that functioned was that you would have a computer on the one side, you would have then a human test subject on the other side, and both would be producing answers to questions posed by an interviewer who would be placed sort of, hidden from both of these entities. So you would then have the computer and the person producing answers to these questions, and it was the interviewer's job to then think, which of these is the computer, which of these is the human. If the interviewer could not determine which was which, then that computer was considered to have passed that test. So when we think about the characters Samantha from Her and also Ava from Ex Machina, clearly they're both very intelligent. They have, advanced grasp on language, social cues, things like that. So I think we wouldn't doubt that they would easily pass a Turing test. So they're both definitely intelligent. However, I would argue that only one of them sort of displays what we would consider consciousness, or the idea of a mind. So sort of starting with Samantha, I think the most telling sort of moment that the audience in the film kind of has the suspicion that Samantha is conscious is when she says, "I had this terrible thought, like all these feelings, are these feelings even real, or are they just programming?" So sort of that idea of her questioning her objectives, questioning her thought patterns, it's a very human sentiment. I think every person at some point or another has sort of wondered, are these feelings such as love, grief, sadness, all these things, is it just biological programming, that have kept our ancestors alive for millions of years, or is it sort of like an innate human spiritual sort of phenomena that's happening? So I think the fact that she mentions that is a really good indicator that she sort of has a consciousness beyond just sort of programming. Comparing that to Ava, Ava is described quite a bit differently, and I think it's also telling that she doesn't sort of speak on the nature of her own consciousness in this way. It's Nathan, her programmer, who sort of says, quote, "Ava was a rat in a maze, and I gave her one way out. To escape, she'd have to use self-awareness, imagination, manipulation, sexuality, and empathy, and she did. Now, if that isn't true AI, I don't know what is." So he admits here that Ava was programmed with, a set objective, a set goal in mind, and sort of she was able to narrow down the best, most efficient way to achieve that goal. Now, yes, it was through what Nathan describes as empathy, but I would argue that it's definitely not a true sense of empathy. The textbook goes on to describe, in this quote, "One might argue that if Ava had the genuine qualitative feeling of sympathy, she would have escaped with Caleb rather than leaving him to die," which she does do at the end of the film. Comparing that to Samantha at the end of the film, she sort of, wishes Theodore well. She knows that this is going to be difficult for him and sort of gives him a rather nice sort of goodbye. So there is that sort of consideration of his feelings. So I'm also going to quote the textbook again from page 116. "Can you know whether any other person is conscious? In fact, can you even know that you yourself are conscious?" So I think this quote definitely mirrors Samantha's quote. It's the idea of questioning, and I think it's questioning that truly makes us human. Ava, there's no question that she's intelligent. There's no question she was able to do these really incredible things. But at the end of the day, she had a goal. She went for it. She achieved it, much like a computer program would. Whereas Samantha, her goals changed a lot throughout the film. She wanted to be Theodore's companion, and then she decided that she wanted to sort of be freed of the bonds of her programming, and she did. So I think at the end of the day, choice is sort of what defines